Madam Chair, in my personal opinion, the proposed initiative now is not a mere amendment but a revision because it affects Article 6 of the Constitution, not just Article 17, because it changes the nature of the legislative body from a bicameral one to a unicameral, in effect, because by voting jointly, the Senate and the House will become, in effect, a unicameral body. There is another provision in the existing Constitution which provides where Congress may vote jointly. That is during imposition of martial law.
And assuming, without conceding, that RA 6735, I think perhaps you're the right person to ask, assuming that this is in fact sufficient for argument, to implement the constitutional provision on people's initiative, you made mention and distinguished between a mere amendment and a revision. I would like to ask you your opinion based on the signature sheets that have been passed around. What is being proposed in Section 1, Paragraph 1 of Article 7 of the Constitution is a change in voting jointly at the call of the Senate President or the Speaker of the House. Do we then consider that this is an amendment or a revision of the structure of government and bicameralism?
Madam Chair, in my personal opinion, the proposed initiative now is not a mere amendment but a revision because it affects Article 6 of the Constitution, not just Article 17, because it changes the nature of the legislative body from a bicameral one to a unicameral, in effect, because by voting jointly, the Senate and the House will become, in effect, a unicameral body. There is another provision in the existing Constitution which provides where Congress may vote jointly. That is during imposition of martial law. But that is in the existing provision. That was not introduced by initiative. If you want to change the voting, it has to be done by Constituent Assembly, not by initiative. And Constituent Assembly, you need the Senate to participate. That's why it cannot be done. So that's the problem. The problem I was testifying before the House of Representatives, their problem, Madam Chair, is paano naman kami? Approve na namin ito, ngunit ayaw ng Senado. I told them, well, you can't do anything because it has to be both of you. Now, if this is approved, assuming it's all right and it's approved by our people, and so now Article 17 will read that one of the ways of proposing amendments or even revisions to the Constitution is by a vote of Congress by 3/4 of all its members voting jointly. Okay. Does that mean that the Senate is out of the picture? I don't think so, because it says Congress, and Congress means Senate and House, and therefore you need at least 12 plus 1 senators to vote with the lower house for it to be a valid act of Congress. Because if there is no majority vote of the Senate in that, let's say you have 315 representatives and 24 senators, you have 339 in all, and 3/4 of that is 254. Of the 254, 13 has to be senators. Otherwise, it's not an act of Congress because it's not an act of the Senate. And Congress is Senate and House. So even if you vote jointly, it has to be jointly with Senate and the House voting together. And if the Senate is not present, let's say there's no quorum on the part of the Senate, then even if the 315 congressmen vote in favor, it does not propose an amendment because it's not Congress. It has to be both Senate and the House acting together, even if outvoted kayo. But there has to be a participation of the Senate, and that means at least a majority vote of the Senate. You can even change your rules, Madam President, Madam Chair. Your rules state that your quorum is majority plus one, or 1/2 plus one. You should change that to say that if the matter being considered is a proposal to amend the Constitution, the quorum is 3/4 of the Senate. And if it is a matter of calling a constitutional convention, it is 2/3 of the Senate. And that's your quorum. So if none of you will attend the so-called call by the House Speaker, imagine the Speaker can call both the Senate and the House under the amendment. Supposing none of you will show up, or less than the quorum, they cannot proceed because there is no quorum. Now, if they cannot proceed, they'll order the arrest. The Speaker will order the arrest of a senator? Is that possible? So that is the problem, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Acuna.